Hello and welcome to Defense Dynamics. I am Danveer Singh coming to you from New Delhi. Today on Defense Dynamics, we will tell you how India is pushing into laser-based air defense systems. To critical stage, now facing the Tejas Mk1A Alpha fighter program, and from autonomous drone swarm warfare under HAL's CATS program to larger geopolitical concerns emerging around the China-Pakistan-Turkey strategic equation. A bigger strategic picture as it begins to emerge. We'll tell you all this and much more. But first, the global defense headlines. India successfully completed final trials of Indigenous UL-PGM-V3 missile at DRDO's Kurnool range. The drone-launched precision weapon proved both air-to-ground and air-to-air combat capability during the testing. DRDO confirmed the missile operated through an integrated ground control system in its final combat-ready configuration. NIBE Limited successfully test-fired Suryastra Plus rocket system at Chandipur with a precision circular error probability of 1.5 to 2 meters. The indigenous long-range artillery platform can strike targets up to 300 kilometers away. Developed by Israel's Elbit system, the system marks a major boost to India's precision rocket warfare capability. Tonbo Imaging has secured an Indian Navy contract under Aditi 3.0 to develop high-powered microwave anti-drone weapon. Backed by IDEX and Defense Innovation Organization, the project strengthens India's directed energy weapons program. The system is designed to neutralize drone swarms and enemy electronics using concentrated electromagnetic energy without physical destruction. Australia will begin a life extension program for its Colin-class submarines starting with HMAS Funcom in May 2026. The upgrade will modernize combat and weapon systems while retaining key platform components to extend operational service. Canberra said the program will ensure the six-boat submarine fleet remains an effective long-range deterrent for years ahead. The US has approved a $4.2 billion military sale to South Korea covering MH-60R Seahawks and Apache upgrade systems. Seoul plans to acquire 24 advanced Seahawk helicopters equipped with radars, sonars, electronic warfare, and targeting systems. Washington also cleared new longbow radar and combat systems upgrade for South Korea's AH-64E Apache fleet. Across the world, militaries are racing to develop directed energy weapon systems that use high energy laser instead of conventional ammunition. And now India is stepping into that race. Private sector company Paras Defense and Space Technologies has showcased its new RayStrike-9 laser weapon system that is designed to detect, track and destroy drones using high energy laser beams. Inside RayStrike-9 system. India's latest entry into this field is the RayStrike-9 laser weapon system showcased by Paras Defense. The system is being developed in multiple configurations ranging from 3 kW to 9 kW laser power. Designed primarily for counter-drone and short-range aerial defense roles. According to company details, the system combines electro-optical sensors, AI-assisted tracking, and high-energy laser engagement capability into a combat mobile platform. The idea is simple. Detect the target, lock onto it, and destroy it using concentrated energy instead of conventional ammunition. The laser advantage. One of the biggest advantages of laser weapons is cost efficiency. Once powered and operational, a laser system can engage multiple targets rapidly without the need for costly interceptor missiles or repeated ammunition reloads. That becomes critically important in a future battlefield dominated by drone swarms. Experts believe laser weapons could eventually become an important layer in India's integrated air defense network, particularly for protecting air bases, military installations, border infrastructure, and critical assets against UAV attacks. Private sector defense shift. The RayStrike-9 program also reflects a large strategic shift underway in India's defense ecosystem. For decades, advanced military technologies like directed energy weapons remained dominated by major state-run laboratories and global defense giants. But today, Indian private industry is increasingly entering high-end defense research and development. Paras Defense has already been working with DRDO on laser-based anti-drone systems under a 142 crore project focused on developing laser source modules and beam control integration for mobile anti-drone and anti-missile applications. The global laser race. India is not alone in this race. The United States, China, Russia, Israel, and several European countries are heavily investing in directed energy systems for air defense, naval warfare, and counter-drone operations. Laser weapons are increasingly seen as part of the future battlefield alongside artificial intelligence, cyber warfare, autonomous drones, and hypersonic systems. And India now wants to be part of that technological transition. The future of warfare. Challenges remain significant. High-energy laser weapons require advanced optics, precision tracking, stable power systems, and reliable battlefield integration. Weather conditions, range limitations, and power generation remain technological hurdles worldwide, but the direction is becoming increasingly clear. India is no longer focusing only on conventional military hardware. It is now preparing for the next generation of warfare where battles may be increasingly be fought not just with bullets and missiles, but with energy itself.
From drones and AI to hypersonic and laser weapons, the future battlefield is changing faster than ever before. And systems like RayStrike-9 show that India is now trying to position itself not just as a buyer of military technology, but as a developer of next-generation warfare capability itself. For the Indian Air Force, the Tejas Mk1A Alpha is more than just another fighter program. It is central to India's long-term plan for rebuilding squadron strength depleted because of obsolete MiG-21 fleet and strengthening indigenous aerospace capability. But this program has also faced repeated delays, particularly because of supply chain disruptions linked to GE F404 engine powering this aircraft. Now, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited says that these deliveries of Tejas Mk1A Alpha could finally begin in the month of August or September of 2026, provided engine supplies stabilize. The development marks an important moment in India's indigenous fighter program, but also highlights the continuing challenge of dependence on foreign critical technologies.
India's fighter ambition. For more than 2 decades, Tejas program has represented India's ambition to build an indigenous fighter aircraft ecosystem. And today, the Tejas Mk1A Alpha has become one of the most important projects for the Indian Air Force. The aircraft, expected to replace the obsolete MiG-21s while strengthening India's domestic aerospace manufacturing capability. But despite significant progress in production and systems integration, one major challenge continues to show deliveries, that is, the engine supply. The engine supply crisis. Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, or the HAL, now says Tejas Mk1A Alpha deliveries to the Indian Air Force are expected to begin around August or September of 2026. Once the supply pipeline for General Electric's F404 IN-20 engines stabilize. According to the HAL officials, the sixth engine from GE Aerospace has now arrived, while additional engines are expected throughout the year. The company believes the engine supply chain could stabilize by late 2026, a critical requirement for accelerating production. The Mark 1 Alpha upgrade. The Tejas Mark 1 Alpha is a significantly upgraded version of the original Tejas fighter. It features improved avionics, advanced electronic warfare systems, active electronically scanned array radar capability, air-to-air refueling, and integration of beyond the visual range missiles, like the Astra. The aircraft is expected to become one of the backbone platforms of the Indian Air Force over the next decade. India has already ordered 83 Tejas Mark 1 Alpha fighters under 48,000 crore rupee deal signed in year 2021, with additional orders for 97 more aircrafts expected to flow. The squadron strength problem. For the Air Force, timely induction is critical. The Indian Air Force squadron strength has remained below sanctioned levels for years. Even as China rapidly modernizes its air power and Pakistan continues inducting advanced fighters and long-range weapons, the retirement of MiG-21 aircraft has increased pressure on the Tejas program to deliver combat-ready fighters at scale, and that is where delay becomes strategically significant. The dependency challenge. The Tejas program also highlights a larger reality about India's defense manufacturing ecosystem. While the aircraft itself has high indigenous content, India still depends on foreign suppliers for critical technologies like the jet engines. The delay in General Electric's engine deliveries has exposed the vulnerability of relying too much on global supply chains for strategic military programs. The reports suggest that GE delivered only 6 engines during last fiscal year, fewer than originally planned, partly due to global supply chain disruption and production bottlenecks. The engine self-reliance push. This is why India is increasingly focusing on indigenous engine development programs like Kaveri 2.0 and future propulsion technologies. Because without domestic engine capability, complete aerospace self-reliance remains a difficult task to achieve. At the same time, HAL has expanded Tejas production infrastructure, including additional production lines and greater private sector participation aimed at increasing annual output in coming years. The future of Indian aviation. Despite the delays, Tejas Mark 1 Alpha remains one of India's most strategically important defense programs. It represents far more than a fighter aircraft. It represents India's attempt to build a long-term indigenous aerospace ecosystem capable of supporting future combat aircraft programs like the Tejas Mark II and the Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft, the AMCA. And the success of Mark 1 Alpha program could shape the future of India's military aviation ambitions for decades to come.
The Tejas Mark 1 Alpha story reflects both the progress and challenges of India's defense transformation. Today, India can design and manufacture advanced fighter aircraft, but critical dependence in areas like jet engine continues to remain a major strategic vulnerability. And bridging that gap may ultimately define how far India's aerospace ambitions can truly go. The future of air warfare may not be decided by fighter aircraft alone. Increasingly, the militaries around the world are investing in autonomous drones, loyal wingman systems, and AI-driven swarm warfare designed to overwhelm enemy air defenses before the manned aircraft can even enter the combat zones. The idea is simple: send expendable unmanned systems first, saturate enemy radar and missile networks, confuse enemy air defenses, and reduce risk of own pilot and high-value fighter aircrafts in enemy airspace. And now, India is developing its own version of that future battlefield concept. Under HAL's Combat Air Teaming System or the CATS program, the ALFA-S swarm pod is emerging as a major part of India's next generation unmanned warfare strategy.
The rise of swarms. The modern air warfare is changing rapidly. For decades, air superiority depended largely on fighter aircrafts, missiles, and electronic warfare systems. But today, a new concept is reshaping combat doctrine, that is, the swarm warfare. Instead of sending a single high-value platform into heavily defended aerospace, militaries are now developing large number of low-cost autonomous drones capable of attacking simultaneously from multiple directions. The objective, it is destruction by saturation. Inside the ALFA-S concept, India's latest step into this evolving battlefield concept comes from HAL's Combat Air Teaming System program, better known as CATS. One of the most important elements within this architecture is ALFA-S swarm drone system. The concept involves a fighter aircraft carrying a pod loaded with multiple loitering munitions. Once launched near hostile airspace, the pod disperses a swarm of autonomous drones designed to hunt enemy radar systems, surface-to-air missile batteries, command vehicles, and air defense assets. The swarm saturation strategy. According to program details, a single ALFA-S pod can deploy up to 24 loitering munitions in coordinated swarm attacks. Each drone is designed as a relatively low-cost expendable system carrying a precision warhead optimized for suppressing enemy air defenses during the opening phase of an air campaign. The larger goal is strategic: protect expensive manned fighters by pushing the highest risk missions on autonomous unmanned systems. The manned-unmanned teaming. The ALFA-S concept is part of a broader manned-unmanned teaming architecture under development by HAL, DRDO, and private sector players like New Space Research and Technologies. Under this model, aircraft like the Su-30MKI, Jaguar, Tejas, and future Indian fighters could eventually operate as motherships, controlling autonomous drones during combat missions. The drones themselves would rely increasingly on artificial intelligence and collaborative decision-making algorithms to identify, assign, and attack targets autonomously. The cost asymmetry advantage. One of the key advantages of swarm warfare is cost asymmetry. A modern fighter aircraft can cost hundreds of crores. Advanced missile interceptors are also extremely expensive. But drone swarms can force adversaries to expand large number of costly interceptor missiles against relatively cheaper unmanned systems. In effect, swarm warfare attempts to overwhelm defensive systems through numbers, coordination, and speed. And recent conflicts have demonstrated how disruptive low-cost drones can become deadly even against sophisticated military forces. The global swarm race. India is not alone in pursuing these technologies. The United States, China, Russia, Turkey, and several other European nations are heavily investing in loyal Wingman drones, autonomous combat aircrafts, and AI-enabled swarm warfare concepts. The battlefield of the future is increasingly expected to involve teams of manned fighters operating alongside autonomous unmanned systems. And India wants to be part of that technological transition. India's next generation warfare push, the ALFA-S program, also reflects a larger shift within India's defense ecosystem. For decades, India focused mainly on licensed production and conventional military platforms. But today, India is increasingly investing in disruptive technologies, autonomous systems, AI-enabled warfare, hypersonics, cyber capability, and next-generation combat networking. The CATS program itself includes multiple futuristic systems that including the CATS Warrior Loyal Wingman drone and AI-driven unmanned combat platforms designed for deep strike and reconnaissance missions. The future air battlefield. Challenges still remain. Swarm warfare depends heavily on secure communication networks, resilient AI systems, electronic warfare resistance, and real-time battlefield coordination. But the direction is becoming increasingly clear. Future air wars may not be fought only by pilots inside the cockpits. They may increasingly be fought by autonomous systems operating in coordinated swarms at machine speed. And India is now beginning to prepare for that future.
From laser weapons to autonomous drone swarms, India's defense ecosystem is increasingly shifting towards next-generation warfare technologies. Because the future battlefield may belong not only to the side with most fighters, but to the side with smartest machines. For decades, India's primary security focus has remained centered on two fronts, that is, China and Pakistan. But after Operation Sindoor, a third name is increasingly entering India's strategic calculus, Turkey. And this shift is no longer coming from strategic analysts, it is coming directly from the military language, which is reflected at various forums. Recently, Lieutenant General Rajiv Ghai's remark about India being prepared to face three adversaries on the same border signals something very important. And that is, New Delhi is now seeing Turkey not merely as a diplomatic irritant, but as an active strategic enabler of Pakistan. The reason is simple. Turkey today is not just supporting Pakistan politically on Kashmir, but it is supporting Pakistan militarily, technologically, and operationally as well. From Bayraktar drones and military training to defense, industrial cooperation, and electronic warfare systems, Ankara is becoming deeply embedded inside Pakistan's evolving military ecosystem. And Operation Sindoor appears to have reinforced India's concerns about exactly how dangerous that partnership could become in future conflicts. Modern warfare is changing very rapidly. The battlefield is no longer defined only by tanks and fighter aircrafts. Drone swarms, AI-enabled systems, cyber warfare, and networked military partnerships are becoming central to the conflict. Turkey has emerged as one of the world's most successful drone warfare powers. Its systems have already reshaped conflicts in Libya, Syria, Nagorno-Karabakh, and Ukraine. And India understands that if those technologies increasingly flow into Pakistan's arsenal, the threat environment changes very significantly. There is also a larger geopolitical picture emerging. India is increasingly seeing a loose China-Pakistan-Turkey strategic axis taking place. China brings economic and military scale, Pakistan remains the frontline security challenge, and Turkey contributes defense technology, ideological alignment, and diplomatic backing. Together, they create a far more networked challenge than India faced a decade ago. That is why India is accelerating investments in counter-drone systems, AI-enabled warfare, missile defense, electronic warfare, and indigenous military technology. Because the lesson after Operation Sindoor is becoming increasingly clearer and clearer. Future conflicts may not involve isolated adversaries anymore. They may involve interconnected military ecosystems operating together across technology, intelligence, drones, cyber capability, and strategic coordination. And in New Delhi's view, Turkey is no longer standing outside that equation. Today's stories have revealed one thing very clearly: the reality of modern warfare, which is no longer being shaped only by conventional platforms. It is increasingly being shaped by autonomy, artificial intelligence, networked warfare, and technological scalability. From laser weapons and indigenous fighter programs to drone swarms alongside new evolving geopolitical alignments. So that's all for today on Defense Dynamics. Thanks for watching. Goodbye and take care.